Good morning, Ramblin' Rusty here again at Dynamic Aviation. And here's Bill Borchers. He's one of the fabricators or workers or whatever you call
Mechanic,
it.
yeah.
Mechanic, you name it. But Bill, tell about the organization, and then we'll also go around and see this baby over here to the
Okay.
left.
Well, we are at Dynamic Aviation, and it's the home of the first Air Force One. Sorry about the interruption there. We are working. So we want to show you here the first Air Force One. It is a 501c3. So we are taking any donations that we can get. And you can go online and look up First Air Force One, and it'll come up with all sorts of things that you can do to help us. Dynamic Aviation also supports a group called Next Generation Aviation, and we educate middle school and high school students and careers in aviation, because right now aviation needs mechanics and pilots and all sorts of support people, and so we're kind of letting the young people know that we would like them to come and work for us.
Yes, I got a chance to go into their flight simulator.
Yep, flight simulator.
And I was able to crash 2 planes trying to land it. And anyway, it's a unique thing. Why is this called Air Force One?
All right. This was President Eisenhower's aircraft, and this was the first airplane. Now, he was president for about a year, and they call it an incident, but this airplane's number is 8610, and there was an Eastern Airline flight 8610 they both had the same call numbers, and they were in the same airspace. Now, they didn't get real close to each other, is what we understand, but the concern was from the Air Force side saying we need to have a better designation for the president, and they came up with Air Force One. And this is the airplane that it all happened in, and so from there on, every airplane a president flew in was designated as Air Force One, and this is the first one.
Okay, Warren, let's come on up and check it out.
All right, I'm going to go turn a light on.
All right.
You can slowly walk up.
It gives me a chance to get up there because I don't walk quite as fast as the rest of them. But anyway, here we're going up the steps.
Alrighty. So Rusty, if you look here, it has a cargo door. And this cargo door was actually damaged back here on the lower side, and somebody had done a repair, but it wasn't like it was originally. So we took it off and totally reskinned it. So that's what you see with the shininess difference. It has not been polished yet, and this new metal will polish really, really nice. So if you want to go on in. So in here, again, Mrs. Eisenhower's lounge was in the back of the airplane. And there's not much left to the inside of this thing.
So this is a lounge for Mamie.
Yep, well, that was her, where she could change and all that kind of thing. There's a bathroom, a closet, there were 2 sinks, and a little bench seat. So, and then in between the closet and the bench seat is a drinking fountain.
Here's your drinking fountain.
A little drinking fountain. And so the water, you pull the cup out and fill it up full of water, and when you're done, you throw it in the trash. Little trash. And there are several of those on the airplane. I think there's another one right here.
Yep.
So just coming out, same thing, Dixie cup, get water, throw it in the trash. So this area here is kind of neat. It had a cabinet all top to bottom, and I'm working on that right now to put it back together. But this is where luggage would go because the airplane has no overhead bins. So if you were carrying on something, you just set it here in this area. And the same way you could put it underneath.
Right.
But the underneath portion, the front side of the underneath portion, is where they kept the parachutes. And there were approximately 30 parachutes on board. And those parachutes would fit anybody, except for little David Eisenhower. And David ended up having his own harness, and he could then clip into any of those parachutes.
Okay.
And we have David's harness.
Oh my.
Yeah. So this was one of the first airplanes also to have the blow-up stair in case you crashed, and you could, it was like a big rubber set of stairs. And it hooked in. The problem was it didn't do it by itself. You had to hook it on and add the air to it.
All right.
So, if you look at the door, it is almost finished. The man door there.
Wow.
And that will be the color of the interior, which is just a white, like it was originally.
Is that leather or?
It is a faux leather,
Okay.
and that will be its what we call headliner material. So that will go throughout the airplane. All this stuff that you see with the holes actually had a very thin layer of wood on it originally. Now that wood had to come off because it would burn. So I'm putting back in a very thin layer of plastic. It's a new material and it is non-burnable, but then I can build onto that just like they built onto the wood.
Okay.
So the structure here too, same thing, is there was wood here. This is a piece of non-burnable
I saw
plastic.
some of those wood downstairs last
Yeah,
time.
and there was wood here that actually came back on up, and so I had to build pieces to make it steady. So what's really neat is the original construction of the inside of this airplane. You could not take and look behind this. If you were to try to look behind it, you were actually taking the headliner off, and it was all stapled on. So I've had to engineer this so that all this can be removed, and you can inspect everything behind it. So if you look over on this side, you'll see this is kind of what it looks like without the headliner material on it, but that's all the shape of what it will look like.
This has been done since last time.
Oh,
I
no,
think.
actually, this was here.
Was it?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I finished this off, actually just before I started working on this side.
Okay.
But now I don't know. Did we talk about the heat?
Yeah.
And the 100,000 BTU heater, one on each side underneath, and that blew hot air originally through wooden air ducts. And I had to replace those in aluminum. So, and everybody loves to look at this. All right, Smith and Chuck. Smith and Chuck, what we understand, were two inspectors, and they were the guys that were inspecting were looking at what we call a D-frame. So it's the framework on either side, and the plane has them all the way throughout to the front and all the way to the back. And every time they inspected one, they would yell out whichever one it was, and somebody would mark it off. So
Right.
Smith and Chuck did a lot of work on this airplane. And then whoever okayed this structure right here, that signature is throughout the airplane.
Okay.
So, yeah, and the floors are still the original wood. It will come out eventually. So, this funny looking thing in front of you right here these are the original buttons. These two just lit up. This one here he could push to call the steward to come back. These two buttons lit up the light above the presidential table. So, and then his phone sat here. In fact, let's get real into it here. This is the original piece of acrylic that his phone actually sat on. But that's all I had of it. So we had to change it out, and I made a new one. fits right in it. This all gets covered with a dark red leather. It's very, very nice looking. And then from here down to the floor, we put in the naugahyde, which is the fake leather. So, President Eisenhower was a pilot as well. And he loved everything airplanes, and so he had them put in a cluster here. So he has I'm lost.
Directional.
Yeah, a compass, and then he ended up putting in for elevation here.
Yep.
And then this one up here is kind of unique. It actually is telling you the temperature in the cabin here. And down below, right in here, is where the sensor is. Now, if anybody questions whether that was actually there, this is the set of original plans from Lockheed, what they built from to make that. And that's what I used to make that. So, yeah. So we're coming forward now. The lighting is not real good in here. But this is kind of catch-all for everything. But this is the first Pullman room. So it sat 8 people, and it also slept 8 people. And this room has 2 emergency exits in it that will let you out on top of the wing, which is really neat. It's not a real big opening when you get the door open, but it's there.
It's there.
So let me.
This is what you had fun with this one, didn't you?
Oh yes. We go through this again here. This bed is representing what's throughout the airplane. There were 5 of them total. This is the only one that actually works. So it's identical to the original, but the original set of plans were